and welcome to the FinTech podcast brought to you by FirstBank. Now, here is where we get to take a look at the different trends, challenges, and also the opportunities that lie inside of FinTech. As usual, my name is Mazino Appeal, your host, or should I say co-host, because there's two of us. I have my co-host here with me, and of course, that is none other than Telula Doherty Aditona. Or is it Aditona Doherty? I don't know.
You got it perfectly right, Mazino. It's so nice to see you, as always.
Well, thank you very much.
The voice, the charisma, the articulation, it's all on 100.
To stop. Continue, please. All right, we have a very interesting topic for today, and today we're going to be talking about the role of regulators in fostering fintech partnerships. So it's a very rapid evolving world when it comes to fintech, and of course, very often this has to do with plenty of partnerships. And today we're going to be taking a look at the regulation that has to do with these partnerships when it comes to fintechs. And to do that with us today, we have none other than Toyosi Egunjobi. Toyosi Egunjobi is a global compliance officer in Cryptus, who has extensive experience working at the intersection of fintech and regulation. You're welcome on the show, Toyosi.
Thank you very much, Mazino. Thank you very much.
Good to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited to, just talk to you guys.
Yeah, about your area of expertise. It's your thing. It's going to be easy. It's going to be fun. We'll make it fun. First off, let's exactly know what you do and why that is very, very important in our discussion here today.
So my name is Toyosi. Most people call me Toyo. And I am a global compliance manager, global head of compliance at Encrypted. And what I do is I'm the gatekeeper, right? I keep the bad guys away, or try to keep the bad guys away. So when business people are getting super ambitious, I'm the voice of reasoning that says, yeah. Or also the face of the organization with the regulators, ensuring that businesses are compliant. We don't just have the policies, but we're following those policies and procedures, ensuring that we're following best practice as well, and stakeholder engagement with board of directors, regulators, and also employees like myself in the organization, keeping everybody abreast of new regulations, new trends, and how can we better manage compliance.
So you're not very liked in the fintech and financial since your regulation.
So I always make this joke, right? I have this meme on my phone where there are two boxers, cartoons, right? One is red, wearing red hats, gloves, and shorts, and the other is blue, and then it's compliance and business, and we're just
back and forth,
forth, and I always let my people know that we're on the same side. If anything happens, especially anything that has to do with money, you have to be super careful. Movement of funds, right? If anything happens, 3 people are going to get fined and maybe go to jail. The owner of the business, CFO, and then the compliance person. And so everybody else, business people can just resign and be like, yeah, but those 3 people are really held accountable. So we're not liked. We don't want to be liked, but we're all on the same team. And just ensuring that the business doesn't go down. People like us also keep, give investors confidence that, businesses are doing the right thing.
And trying to emphasize the role of regulators here. Let's talk about partnerships, first of all. In fintech, you discover that it's all about partnership, mostly. This person's got this apparatus, that person's got that apparatus, and then there's the banks. And hey, we can all work together, let's shake hands. But then we need regulation, and that's where you come in. So why is it absolutely important to actually have regulation in these kinds of dealings when it comes to fintech?
First and foremost, right, consumer protection. So when there's regulation, it helps with ensuring that businesses have ethical processes and approach to how they do business, data protection, and fraud prevention. We've heard so many issues, fraud here and there. Just having certain processes in place will reduce those risks. Data protection as well. I don't think that in Africa we used to be very big, or we understood what data protection really was, but I'm glad that people are more informed and enlightened, and customers' data is protected, customers' information is protected. I'm also helping to sensitize customers. How can you better safeguard your funds with whichever fintech that you choose to partner with? In addition to that, investors' confidence, right? They understand that if this sector is properly regulated, not over-regulated, right? Because over-regulation also stifles business. But properly regulated, and then it helps, gives them certainty and confidence that my funds can better be managed. Another thing is ensuring that there's no unnecessary monopoly. Having fair practices, strong regulations help with fair practices, and ensuring that, the risk from financial innovation through financial products and services are better reduced and managed. One other thing I wanted to say is financial stability. So when, a sector, fintech, for example, is proper regulated, it helps with financial stability and economic balance.
How do you think, as a continent, we can embrace, new innovation while still, protecting the interests of our citizens?
So I think it's important to be open-minded, just like with anything. If the only thing that's constant is change, you cannot grow if you're not innovative and if you don't embrace new technology. At the same time, there's got to be a balance,
right,
with new innovations. Of course, test and see. Don't just run, test. That's why we have like regulatory sandboxes. Have like your product paper and your white paper, which explains to all your stakeholders. Who are your stakeholders? Your regulators are your stakeholders. Your customers are your stakeholders. Your employees are your stakeholders. Your family members are also your stakeholders as well, because you spend most of your time building and then family suffers. So embrace change and be transparent. Transparency is very, very, very important. Constant communication. First of all, identify who your regulator is and then work with your regulator to say, okay, this is what I have. I know that maybe it's not fully fleshed out yet. We all don't even know what's going on, but I'm happy to work with you to see how we can better regulate and manage what I currently have.
So can I just interject something there? So I love what you said about, coming to the regulator first and saying, this is my idea. But oftentimes regulators have this sort of reputation as the big bad wolf, where it's almost like they're going to stop what you're doing, or they maybe want to stifle innovation and just want to keep things as they are and not really embrace new ways or new technology. So how do you think, fintechs and startups can approach regulators in a way that can lead to mutually beneficial partnerships?
So stakeholder engagements, you can have like town hall meetings, right? So we have so many conferences, we have so many summits and events and workshops, but I don't see that many that really focus on conversations, real life conversations with regulators. Your regulator cannot regulate something they don't understand or fully understand. They would regulate it based on their knowledge. And then that's where stifling comes in. Your regulator is not supposed to be your friend, but your regulator is supposed to be approachable and supposed to be receptive. Another thing that I feel like on the regulator side is they need to have more innovative minds. Sorry to say not older people, but have a balance between like different generations and different people from different backgrounds that can sit down and do the work. There's sometimes that it could be from a lazy perspective. Sincere apologies for that. It is, this is what I'm used to. And I'm just
trying
going
to preserve the...
So they think they're preserving, but they just don't want to do the work to start working on new guidelines and new frameworks and a whole lot of...
which is very funny, because I was going to ask, and I actually even wrote that down, because you've got policies, you've got culture, you've got structural apparatus that are already on ground. So how do regulators play in the midst of all of these factors, especially culture and apparatus? Now, look at that in from the Nigerian context.
Everybody is struggling with culture, right? And there's this assumption that because it's culture, it has to be permanent, but culture changes because somebody came and brought this trend and people followed, right? But there's a perception that because it's culture, we just have to keep it like that, tradition, and then we don't, but be open-minded, like I said, and embrace change. To be fair on the regulators as well, you're trying to regulate this one and then somebody else has come with another thing, and then it's so hard to keep up. How do you keep up with, we're saying, okay, there's crypto, then we know there's stable coin, and before you know it, NFT, before you know it, somebody's buying structures in the air, and like, how do you regulate all of these things? On the regulator's perspective, that there's a lot of innovation happening and it's really hard to keep up. There's AI, so many new innovations, but communication, I think that's the only thing. And I think change management, handling change management properly as an organization, and then obviously with your regulators and stuff. It's not something that happens in one day. I'm sure that the likes of InterSwitch, my alma mater, or I used to work at InterSwitch, so I know how like a lot of things started. I'm sure when they started, everybody was like, what's that? Even I was scared to use my card online but of course they kept at it. Continue to just advertise, marketing, if you are trustworthy. And I think also as a leader, as a business leader, trust is important. People invest and believe in people first before the product.
I wanted to say now, Telula, this is very interesting because for every change or innovation that we've had in business, or especially fintech, it's come from the outside in, from out the more developed countries to Nigeria, and then we adopt it. We often very much like it. However, when it comes to taking those innovation or innovative ideas from inside our culture, outside it becomes a problem because of regulation. And I'll give you one typical example. There's something called a susu. That's a very innovative. It's a very cultural. You know what a susu is, yes?
Yes, I do. Is it like ajo?
Yeah. See, yeah, you're correct. Actually,
it's the same thing.
Yeah,
I was worried. Okay, good.
So that's a very grand idea that has stood the test of time when it comes to Nigeria and our culture. When it comes to finances, people coming together to little thrifts, I think it's called, and they put money together, and it helps with saving. It isn't exactly. There's not really much profit there, but I do believe that there is something there that we can actually take, innovate, and make bigger and send to the world. I don't know if anybody's thought about that or what role regulation plays in this kind of innovation that's indigenous to a country.
I know somebody that has that product. We belong to the same business community. I think her product is, Alajo or something like that. So she has that.
Alajo.
Yeah, Alajo, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I like it when they keep the cultural names too.
Do you get exactly? And it was so cool. Honestly, I've never used that product. I know what the product is about. I know that she's definitely doing something outside of Nigeria. One thing I find is that Nigerians typically build products for Nigeria. I don't know if it's fear or uncertainty or, we're not sure how receptive we would be or our culture. But you never know until you try, right? You don't know if you're going to fail or fly until you try. And then if you fail, you try again.
But that responsibility seems to also lie with the regulators, because if you let these businesses or little innovative ideas flourish, you never know where it would get.
Well, that's true.
But then we have the regulators to deal with.
So we do have the regulators. I know that dealing with regulators is a lot of work, and I don't think it's going to get any easier. That's why you need your compliance people. That's why you need your lawyers. You need people who will advise you. I specifically think or strongly think that business people should really focus on business. Of course, work with your compliance and your legal team while we do I don't want to say the dirty work, but
more complex work.
More complex, exactly. So, belonging to like business networks, belonging to different groups as well, where people who work with regulators belong to. So even if you're not having those conversations in like open forums, you're having chats, it's bouncing ideas off ourselves. And then the person is going back to the office, say, how do you consider my friend? This is what's going on. This is what's happening. Let's invite this person. Of course, stuff like this as well, just having open conversation.
So can you please give us some case studies or examples of successful partnerships between regulators and fintechs or startups? Because I think that would just be very encouraging.
Yeah. You're not all bad.
Yeah, there's been some great successes, so we'd love to hear about them.
I would say outside of commercial banks, because I think that commercial banks work really well with the regulators. Other fintechs, I think InterSwitch did. Initially there was, a few things that happened but it also helped them become more innovative, moving your card scheme away from your switch. People like, guess maybe Paystack and Moneypoint as well, getting your license, Flutterwave as well. So there are these big people. And then I think there's also this notion that once you announce your raise, the regulator just comes after you. But your regulator is going to come after you to see you've become a big brand, right? Reputation is important. Because what we also need to understand is that there are other organizations that are watching. FATF. Unfortunately, Nigeria is on the grey list, very super close to blacklist, being blacklisted on the FATF list.
You want to explain what that is for anybody?
Okay, so for people who don't know, so the FATF is the Financial Action Task Force. So they're a regulatory body that really just supervises and regulates money laundering and terrorist financing and then financial crimes. And then so they have like their own guidelines and frameworks. Very reputable as well. So if you want to be recognized, you better be part of, FATF and be in their good books.
Okay.
And so,
But we're not, as Nigeria, in the grey list.
yeah, we're on the grey list.
But
We have a whole lot of work.
We're working on.
I mean, I'm sure we are. That's why, I'm sure the CBN is doing a lot of work as well to prevent financial crimes and all of that stuff. So regulators are also being super careful because reputation matters.
Yeah.
You hear every day about how businesses and business owners are folding because the founder of the business has embezzled funds. And the investors' money is not.
Got a
it's not
couple of
free
names
money.
that come up.
You get investors' money is not free money. You know what I mean? So regulators are just there to keep you in check. But people have skilled. I mentioned some businesses, and they're doing really well, very reputable outside of Nigeria as well.
Some have been acquired and some have been invested in
Exactly.
by foreign companies.
Absolutely, yes. So many partnerships have happened.
Yes,
From like foreign investments, and so we do have these numbers. We have these people. We also have our banks as well, who establish branches in different countries. I'm sure that in order for you to be able to leave Nigeria to go and establish your bank outside of Nigeria, you have to abide by those regulations. And the fact that they're still there means that they're doing something well. So rather than focus on the people who aren't doing good, let's look at how we can do better and be like people who are doing good.
Fantastic. And I want to touch on people who are doing good, like you mentioned, the Interswitches of the world, the Paystacks, who have successfully cooperated with regulators in order to grow and scale and innovate. Are there any specific lessons that can be taken away from the way in which they've been able to evolve? Because, a lot of them have gone from being startups to now being valued as unicorns, which is very impressive.
Okay. So I will speak about my experience when I was working at Interswitch, and then the things I've heard about the likes of Paystack. I think employee-employer relationship is a partnership, right? Be transparent with your employees. Let them see the vision. One thing, do not hire people who do not buy into your vision because they will stifle you. Be transparent, be a good leader, right? The culture of an organization, you know how good or bad the culture is from the top. If the owner of a business is someone who's not ethical, there's no way they'll have ethical practices in the business, and vice versa. So at Interswitch, we always knew what was going on. Mitchell will typically send emails, and just keep us abreast of different things. Paystack, I've heard that they did have, their culture is great. They have very good leadership. So I think, first of all, leadership matters. Sometimes you can be a great innovator, doesn't necessarily mean you're a great manager. What do you do about that? Do you hire people to run the business with you? Play to your own strengths. So your IT person is different from your risk person, it's different from the people who are running the business, and partnerships. Play to your own strength and don't try to do everything by yourself. Partnership within, if you embrace partnership within, then of course, outside of your business as well, partnerships will happen. So yes, work culture and leadership, very, very important.
Now, let's talk about navigating the regulators, not avoiding them, but navigating the regulation. If fintech companies want to go into full swing and actually actualize their potential 100%, advise a small startup fintech company on how to navigate regulation in Nigeria, all factors included.
Open channel of communication with your regulators, like I said, and keep that communication going. Ensure that you have somebody who will serve as your advisor or advisor. You have to embrace compliance first. You have to show and prove that you're open to compliance. Have collaborative projects as well with different fintechs like yourself, and then present your case to your regulators and say, okay, this is what we've done. We have can call yourself a focus group or whatever. And maybe quarterly, monthly, have those dialogues. These are the challenges that we're facing. You don't want to really know what's going on the shop floor if you're not actively involved. And if you don't invite me somewhere, I'm not going to go, right? So quarterly, have those meetings and say, here we are, this is what we're doing. How can we better do it? Regulator says, well, I don't understand what you're doing. It sounds like you guys are trying to go outside of the norm. Of course we are. That's why we're trying to be innovative. How can we work with you? What are the things that you need for us to guide you to understand? And then from that, you can regulate. You can offer yourself and say, okay, we're going to work on a guideline based on the things that we're innovating. And let us see if it makes sense to you. Feel free to tweak it, however. education is very important as well. If you don't educate your regulators, they might not know what's going on.
That's like being your very own guinea pig, first of all.
Exactly.
You know.
So proactively engage. Don't wait for them to come to you, right? It's like, oh, as long as I'm minding my business and doing my own thing and nobody sees me. But one day they're going to find you, right?
Can I just say something about that? Which I, if I was a fintech startup, I would be thinking of actually, which is the cost of regulation. I think oftentimes the reason startups shy away from going to the regulator is because they don't want to be getting a huge bill unexpectedly, and they feel like they might say, oh, you need this license, or why didn't you have that license, or we're going to fine you because you did this that you were not supposed to do. So there is that element, the cost of...
Would the regulators fine? Would the regulators fine a fintech company if they go outside of regulation?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, really?
That's non-compliance. Like
that'd be fined, not just a mean finger being waved at
so
me.
you can be fined, your business can be shut down, they can withdraw your license. Absolutely. So it really depends.
That's the reason to run away.
Yeah, standard practice. So, but you know what? But you know, but let me tell you something. To be honest, what happens is there'll be interventions. So a regulator doesn't just come to you and say, oh, we're going to fine you, right? There'll be several interventions.
Right.
This is what you're supposed to do, warning letters and a number of things. They'll come for audits to check you the first year. So you're not going to get fined in the first year. In fact, the first 2 years, they might not even fine you.
Okay.
But as you're getting bigger in your third year, how far? First year, we checked this. You said you were going to do it. We've come back again, second year, same thing. Now, third year, and you haven't done anything about it. It means you're not taking it serious.
Right.
Because you also want to be careful of setting wrong precedents. If somebody gets away with this, everybody thinks they can get away with it too.
That's true.
One of the ways that you can also, help with licensing, for example, nowadays there are collaborations, so you can leverage on other people's license. It might be expensive, but you can negotiate and say, okay, I don't have the money now, but how can we negotiate that both parties, can benefit?
So there are ways around.
Yeah, there are definitely ways around it. If your regulator says you have to have a license before you proceed, it's either you have a license or you leverage on somebody's license, but don't start business. And my people always laugh at me and they're always like, it's because you're not a business person. See, if you have a compliance-focused business as the foundation, that is what's going to keep driving you. You don't decide to be compliant when you're 5 years into the business.
It's going to be hard.
It's just the same way if you don't have like proper structure, corporate governance and a number of things from the onset. You're used to running your own show. Is 5 years that you're like, some people do eventually get there, but you have to have that focus.
I'm completely compliant in all of my e-commerce.
So you have to be,
thank you,
very, very focused on these things. Or have your pipeline, right? Have your roadmap. Year 1, this is what we want to focus on. Year 2. But it shouldn't just only be about building the business. You don't want to build the business and then just one thing gets you shut down or fined, So
yeah, it's key to keep it at the forefront.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think you've made it very relatable and very understandable because it's a topic that can be a bit scary and you just want to, it's hard to understand if you're not directly a regulator or you don't work in that sector because there's so many elements and it just seems like it changes often as well. So it's a little bit difficult to keep up with, but you've simplified it for us. So thank you so much.
Every sector is regulated, right? Education is regulated, healthcare is regulated, everything. So why is it only financial services I don't know about other sectors. I don't know if they're scared or not, but you need to realize that you're not alone, right? If other people are doing it, you can too. Okay. No point in trying to build so much and then just that gets you shut down.
Toyosi, Egunjobi, thank you very much. A very interesting discussion we've had here today regarding regulation when it comes to fintechs and partnerships as well. Couldn't have learned this anywhere else but with you. And we're looking forward to having more conversation with you regarding the topic and maybe other topics as well. Also want to say thank you to everybody who's viewed this podcast today. The FinTech podcast brought to you by FirstBank. We have very many of these coming your way, so make sure that you make it a habit. You might want to click on the notification bell if there's one on this platform so that you can get subsequent editions of it. Until then, I guess it's okay to say our goodbyes now, isn't it?
I think it is, yes.
Well then, so it's goodbye from me, myself, and I, all three of us, Mazino Appeal, and...
It's goodbye from me, Talila Doherty Additional, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.